So tell me, what overstimulates you? I'll go first. Sand at the beach, being sweaty, being wet or having wet clothes on, feeling the tags on my clothing, feeling my clothing in general. Yeah, comfy clothes is probably best. Textures, beeping sounds, especially repetitive ones that don't go away, you don't know where they're coming from. Whenever there's too much background noise, I can't concentrate on what someone's saying to me. I would be lying if I said I've never cut an event or a whole entire day short because I got overstimulated by maybe some things I didn't anticipate encountering that day. Maybe lights, maybe sounds, overlapping stimuli, textures even. Everybody's got their different flavors. When do you know? When do you know it's time that you're becoming way too overstimulated? If you are experiencing sensory input and all of a sudden you find yourself kind of irritable, agitated, unable to focus, that's a pretty good sign. If you're a person that's finding that you're getting like halfway through the day, if that, and you're like ready to have a meltdown all the time, that we don't want to be there. Okay, when you start to have those aha moments, it's hard to figure, okay, what do I do with that now? Because life is going to keep lifing, right? Like you're not going to be able to just magically snap your fingers, and you're never going to encounter things that overstimulate you. So tell me, what overstimulates you? I'll go first. Sand at the beach, being sweaty, being wet or having wet clothes on, feeling the tags on my clothing, feeling my clothing in general. I would actually rather just have really comfy clothes on because not having clothes on at all, like being fully naked, then you like start to stick to stuff potentially, and that's a no-go for me. Yeah, comfy clothes is probably best. Textures, beeping sounds, especially repetitive ones that don't go away, you don't know where they're coming from. Everything has to stop if something in my house is beeping. Noise. Whenever there's too much background noise, I can't concentrate on what someone's saying to me. I don't know if you've ever been over someone's house that is clearly not yours because you walk in there and there's like a kid screaming or two people talking very loudly over the TV, and also like the stove is going and the vent fan is going at the same time, and like I don't know, between that and then the dog starts barking, and there's literally the eight sensory overload things going on at once, and that's when like you straight up just want to escape. I would be lying if I said I've never cut an event or a whole entire day short because I got to a certain point and got overstimulated by maybe some things I didn't anticipate encountering that day, and didn't know what to do. And I tend to go more towards shutdown than meltdown, but meltdown certainly can happen, especially like at home when it's things that I can control. And then when I shut down, I almost can't even express what's going on with me. I almost like run out of words when I started dating the girlfriend that I'm with right now. There were some days when we were on our, not like our first dates, but like we had been dating for a little bit, and my day was a lot longer and a lot more overstimulating than I realized. And then by the time I got to the end of the day and we walked to dinner and I sat down, I just didn't have words. And she probably felt like she was having dinner with a brick wall, and I felt terrible. And I tried to express that, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just really tired. But, I feel like it's probably not something that she believed in the moment. And later, when she understood, and when I kind of fully understood what was going on with me and my neurodiversity, it gave her a lot of context, and it's now given some people in my life a lot of context for the ways in which I operate. But when you're still getting to know yourself, and or you're maybe newly diagnosed with autism, and you're just starting to have those aha moments of like, oh, that's why I've never been able to handle being overstimulated by a sight, light, texture, sounds. When you start to have those aha moments, it's hard to figure, okay, what do I do with that now? Because life is going to keep lifing, right? Like you're not going to be able to just magically snap your fingers and you're never going to encounter things that overstimulate you. Even neurotypical encounter things that overstimulate them. We're all just people and we can be overstimulated. But of course, us neurodivergent folk, we tend to be more sensitive, a lot more sensitive. So, what is sensory overload or overstimulation? Quite simply, it's when the brain receives more sensory input than it can process at any given time. And it's most common in people who are autistic or ADHD. Being a person that has a bit of both going on, I both thrive on chaos and demand order. And I feel like I'm constantly battling those two things at the same time. A lot of us folks have atypical sensory modulation, which means that we kind of have a mismatch and our input can be different than people who are neurotypical. And it's usually things in your environment that tend to trigger these things. Maybe lights, maybe sounds, overlapping stimuli, that's a big one for me, and textures even. Everybody's got their different flavors, their different pet peeves that they're more focused on, for sure. But what are the warning signs? When do you know? When do you know it's time that you're becoming way too overstimulated? If you are experiencing sensory input and all of a sudden you find yourself kind of irritable, agitated, unable to focus, that's a pretty good sign that that might be what's going on with you. Or you can get immediately kind of like energy drain, you get fatigue, or you just get this feeling deep down like you want to just bust out the doors and run down the street, like you're wanting to get out, you're wanting to escape. It's a very common feeling. And then there's like the later stages, you know, you can't concentrate, and you either have a full-blown meltdown where you might end up screaming at someone that you don't intend to scream at, or screaming to yourself, or you are like in the corner somewhere, you know, huddled up doing whatever you need to do to try to like self-soothe. I'm an ear puller, you know. And then there's full-blown shutdown. I'm a shutter downer more so than a meltdowner. I tend to melt down at home when it's like things that I can control most of the time. Like there's just like I'm in my own chaos and I have mostly created it, or I've at least have a big part in it. And whatever it is, like the straw that broke the camel's back has just happened, like the last final straw, and I'm like I'm done. And I can get snippety and with myself or in general around other people, and you know, it's certainly something that I've had to work on now that I have more awareness about what's going on with me as an adult. And then when I shut down, it's like I said before, I tend to like run out of words. I just seem like I'm checked out, zoned out. I might like get on the computer or get on my phone and just kind of scroll, or just literally sit there staring at the wall. I mean, I can go like I can go that seriously blank. And that's just the point when you've had it. And basically the day is over at that point for me. I don't know about anybody else out there, but the day is over for me when that sort of stuff happens. And that's not a place any of us want to be. You know, you don't want to feel like you can't make it through your day because maybe you've mismanaged your energy, maybe you didn't anticipate something that you kind of got thrown into that was a real energy drain for you, or a real overstimulator, a sensory trigger, if you will. And it's life. Sometimes those things happen. But we certainly want to try to do what we can to mitigate the worst of it. And there are ways to do that. Hey there, what's up? My name's Ashley. I'm a life coach, and I like to help people who are going through big life changes, burnout, and spiritual changes find their purpose and a life that better aligns with their values. I also help people who are ADHD and on the spectrum find their flow, find their real purpose, and build a life more aligned with how they function. On this channel, we explore all different kinds of topics, whether that be everyday life hacks for just everybody or people who are neurodiverse, whether it be spiritual topics or topics about the unknown, topics about things that are just coming down the pipeline for us humans. I like to talk about everything that makes us who we are and what we're experiencing right now and how we can improve to adapt to it all. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, like this video, subscribe, and you'll see more content just like this. So what are you going to do about it is the real question. The first thing you should do is some kind of trigger audit. You really need to deep dive and sit there and think about, maybe write it out. What are the things that when I encounter them, when I experience them, when I touch them, when I hear them, when I see them, whatever. What are those things that they really either drain me, they kind of make me feel on edge, they make me feel like I want to escape the situation. What are those things? Is it more visual? Is it noises? Is it just overlapping, like too many sounds overlapping? Is it different kinds of stimuli overlapping, like light and sound and people talking? And what is it for you? Or is it down to your environment, like just the lighting, the way you feel sitting in your chair, the clothes that you're wearing, the shoes you're wearing, the materials of the things that you're coming into contact with? What is it that's really your top five, maybe? What are those top five things that are things that you tend to encounter a lot, that tend to be a problem a lot, and that bother you the most? And as you're thinking about this list, when you're thinking about your plans, when you're making plans, when you're doing your calendar, when you're going out for the day, maybe you're on a trip and you're kind of on a, we'll see where the day takes us. What types of areas do you think you're going to go to? What types of things might you want to be aware of, to plan ahead, that, either bring something with you or give yourself some grace somewhere and give yourself some alone time, whatever it is that you're going to need. And we're going to talk about those things. But in essence, what are the things that set you off? When are you likely to encounter them? And what are you going to do to make it easier on yourself so that you've planned ahead, and when you encounter certain things, you know how to combat it, you know how to deal with it, you've got something to alleviate the situation, or you've got a plan of escape, you've got a plan of action that you can take whenever it gets tough. First things first, what's in your toolkit? These are like actual physical things that you would carry with you out and about. Maybe you throw them in your day pack, you keep them in your car, wherever you're going to be. Number one, for me, headphones. If I do not have my headphones, that is a, like, we are at DEF CON 1. Like, that is an emergency. I was once at the train station. We were getting ready to get on the bus to LAX. I stopped dead in my tracks, walking up the stairs to the bus stop. And my girlfriend turned around and said, "What?" And I said, she saw the look on my face and she was like, "Oh no, it's bad." I said, I don't have my headphones. And being a person who holds space for me in the way that she does, she's like, "Okay, let's make a phone call because bus is coming. We probably don't want to wait till the next one." A lovely neighbor was kind enough to bring me them, and it saved the day. But I was panicked. I was like, I will spend $200 outrageous price at the stupid LAX store to get headphones, like noise canceling headphones at this point. Like, that was how dire straits it was. But those headphones wouldn't have been my headphones. And I know that that sounds crazy, but that is what it is with me. It's important to have a backup system. That's a serious one. Sunglasses, light, overstimulating. Sunlight is overstimulating for me. Oftentimes, hat, sunglasses. Try not to look like the Unabomber. Do what you have to feel less assaulted by the sun when you go out and about. I live in LA. I can't really hide from the sun. The sun is part of my life. But I try to create a better relationship with it by trying not to get overheated and trying to use the sunglasses and the hat to keep the sun out of my eyes, at least, because that's where it really bothers me. Maybe something scented that calms you. Maybe like a little stress ball, a little fidget toy, anything like that that just kind of brings you back to square one, when you're just like, a little bit too much is going on. If you're a person that's finding that you're getting like halfway through the day, if that, and you are just up to here already, and you're like ready to have a meltdown all the time, we don't want to be there. Okay, let's talk about some of the ways in which you could alleviate that. One big one is your schedule. Now, if you have a 9 to 5, if you work for a large corporation, whatever, if you have like an office job, um, if you're working on site, there are obviously some limitations to that. Now, sometimes you can get accommodations for that, and that's certainly something that you may want to explore if it's really serious enough for you. Um, Maybe that's the way you work. Maybe that's the space in which you work, the environment in which you work. Um, you know, maybe that's someone changes the light bulbs to something that isn't the color of anxiety near your workstation. Simple stuff like that can really help. If you work kind of in the corporate world or for somebody else in general, you can't just like block out chunks of time between activities to like decompress the way you could if you work from home or if you work for yourself. However, you can kind of, do what you can. Again, if you have an accommodation, amazing. Otherwise, go take a bathroom break and set a timer and like give yourself like 3 minutes of scroll time or do breath work for 3 minutes. Whatever it is that you need to do that brings you some calm. Maybe you need to go like sit in your car on your lunch break just to have like total silence. Whatever it is that you need, try to find small little ways that you can like carve out if even if it's just a minute or two. I promise you it will make a difference in your day. Take off your shoes or something at your workspace if you're kind of at a desk where you're not moving all the time. Don't do it if you have smelly feet. Like wash them. Be courteous to your coworkers. Like nobody should know when you've removed your shoes. That should be like the bar that you're setting there. Just FYI. If you're lucky enough to have like your own office with like a door you can close, work with the lights off sometimes. Who cares? If you have a light switch, shut them off. If light is like your overstimulator, shut them off. Or maybe you can ask your boss to install a dimmer if they're dimmable, and you can dim them down a bit. Whatever. There are a million ways which you can kind of figure it out. You can keep some stuff at work to help. You can keep like a blanket that you lay over you to kind of make you feel grounded. If you need like a special wrist pad for your mouth, like for your mouse situation, so that you're just like not like weirded out by like the way the desk touches your wrist. There are ways that you can make your workspace more comfortable without it being too much trouble, hopefully. If the office space is full of overstimulation for you, think about some ways which you can work through that and alleviate some of that pain. Maybe you can work with headphones on sometimes and like keep out chatter that's really distracting to you. Now, when it comes to your home space, what are you doing to help when you get home, when you're overstimulated, when you're like up to here, when it's time you got to do something? When you're lucky enough to have that when you're at home, what do you have at home for you? There should be a safe space for you in your home. I don't care if that's like a special chair. I don't care if it's like you made a little nook in the corner of your room with like you made like a pillow for it or something. I don't know. Whatever whatever it is you need. Sensory swings, highly recommend. I don't care if you're 2 years old or 10 years old or 37 like I am. Sensory swings are amazing. I have like a hammock chair which kind of subs as a sensory swing, so like other people can use it too. I have friends that have an autistic son, and I help them put up a sensory swing, and I tested it out to make sure that it would hold weight. And it became obvious who like the neurodiverse people were in the room because immediately we were like overjoyed by this thing, and everybody else was like, "Well, I guess it's cool," you know. Nobody else was excited about it as we were, so um, they really make a difference. It's kind of like wrapping yourself in a cocoon, and there's no like pressure points of like sitting in a chair. It's just like you're floating. And whatever weight on your shoulders that overstimulation gives, this takes it away. I promise. It's really makes it much better. Maybe it's a weighted blanket or a heated blanket, or maybe it's something that does both. Maybe it's a cooling blanket. Maybe it's a really comfy robe or one of those like onesie blanket robe things that people get. Whatever really makes you comfortable, at least have that to look forward to when you get home. If you work from home, it definitely makes it a lot easier to do all of these things kind of in one. Control your lighting, control the sound, control some of the distractions and some of the things, and not have to worry about what you wear. You can wear kind of what's comfortable in a lot of regards. Working from home certainly is a better option for people who really, really struggle with this. And as a side note, and this is another podcast for another day, but if you are someone that really, really tremendously struggles in the office space, in the corporate space, because overstimulation, and you're just finding that despite taking some of these steps and doing a lot of these things, it's just not cutting it for you, consider whether maybe that is the field for you. I know it can be scary to consider a whole different career or a different lifestyle, but man, your sanity is important in this equation. You could be uncomfortable and a little miserable trying to figure out the next thing, but figure it out in the end and be much happier. The discomfort of figuring out the next thing, that something might be better for you, it certainly is not worse than doing the same thing forever, knowing that it's just something that isn't a good fit for you. And I promise, as scary as that might be, a lot of us folks that are neurodiverse, we are meant for something that we are very specialized at and we're very, very good at. And if you feel like the fashion of your job or what it is that your job is gets in the way of that, I really want you to consider doing something different. Don't like quit your job with no plan. Don't put yourself in a bad position, but think about what the next steps might be and start chipping away at it. Start working on it. So what happens when you're at emergency status? You're past that point of it's a little bit uncomfortable and you're at full blown like I'm I'm losing it, man. I'm gonna have a meltdown. I'm gonna shut down. I'm just gonna be like totally checked out. You need to figure out what's in your first aid kit. And that is not probably a physical thing. That is probably a routine. That is, I need to sequester myself for a minute. That is, I need to do a breath exercise. Maybe you pull out a 5 minute guided meditation or a guided breath work. You can do simple triangle breathing where you inhale for X number of seconds, hold it, exhale for X number of seconds. You could do box breathing where you hold breath on the inhale and after the exhale before you inhale again. There are different ways, look them up, really easy stuff to do that just brings you back to center. And when you find your thoughts are kind of racing on you, whether you're trying to meditate or trying to do breath, bring your focus back to your breath in either situation, always. It always helps you kind of tune out whatever else is going on, focus on one single thing, and do it enough times. Usually it only takes a minute or two for it to really kick in and you are back to like homeostasis pretty much. And that should be the goal, bringing you back down to zero, to level, right? Or at least bringing you down several notches so that you can make it through what you have to do, get what you need to do done. And if it's possible, if you're having a really rough time, try to give yourself some grace, try to cut your day short any way you can, or try to shave off some things that maybe are less necessary. Prioritize in these moments. Again, ideally, it's better to have a proactive plan when you're entering certain spaces, certain events, certain environments that you know are overstimulating to you. It's better to have a plan from the beginning. But sometimes, like I said, life happens. You get thrown into something you weren't expecting, something unexpected happens, and here you are in a situation you didn't really envision. Follow your emergency protocols. Experiment with them, ideally when you're not in these like critical situations, when you're like out and about. Maybe do it when you're at home and you're having a struggle, you know? Practice what works best. Maybe it's meditation, maybe it's breath work, maybe it's saying certain things to yourself, or maybe it's just like wrapping yourself up in something, whatever you can do, but recognize that it has to be something you can do pretty much anywhere. So again, don't be attached to like a physical comfort in those moments, unless it's something that you could literally keep in your pocket with you all the time. Just be thinking of that when you're thinking of like what's in my emergency first aid kit, so to speak. And then, like I said, whenever you've had like that emergency moment and you've had to dip into the first aid kit, um, do what you can for the rest of that day to be kind to yourself, to have like a post-event decompression, if you will. Maybe that means you come home, you shower, you take a bath, and you veg and watch TV for a little bit, or take a little nap, or just lay down, or maybe you need to exercise. Maybe you have like a little frenetic energy in you that you just need to get out. Exercise is probably one of those things that isn't really talked about enough as a really good outlet for people who are neurodiverse. Not just folks that are ADHD, people on the spectrum too. Often we're overstimulated by elements of exercise, meaning like touching certain things or discomfort in our body, just feeling uncomfortable in our body, or sweating and stuff like that that comes along with exercise. But do what you can to counteract that. Find something that you like enough that you can bear doing more than once every now and then, like on a routine. That's also an important part of decompression, is making sure that you are exercising and are releasing energy that is not serving you. And staying healthy in the process, of course, because health is tied to mental health. But after those days, those moments when, it's been like an SOS kind of day, um, make a plan. Show yourself some compassion. So, what's the takeaway here? One, awareness. Knowing what those triggers are. The big ones, the ones that you tend to encounter when you're out and about in the world or you're at home, whatever it is. When you're experiencing stress, what does it seem to be linked to? And when you think about your plans, when do you seem to be encountering those things? When you look at your schedule, anticipate when you might kind of run into these problems. And then what are you going to do to make it easier on yourself? Now, how do we make that all work? Well, consistency. And how do we build consistency? We build routines. So a sensory check should be part of your everyday routine. If you're a calendar person and you adhere very strictly to your calendar, you've got it up all the time, you're always looking at it, you are on it, add a note, add a little alarm, whether it's alarm, a calendar thing, however you do it, make sure that you're setting time several times a day to check in with yourself. Maybe you can do that at random times, at random but consistent times, or whether that should be kind of strategically depending on what your day is, when you should be checking in with yourself, especially after certain activities that are going to be tough ones for you. Be thinking about that. But those check-ins are so vital because that keeps you from getting to, I need like emergency status first aid kit type deal. Checking in more often and becoming more aware of where and when you seem to fall into the traps of your own kind of sensory triggers, knowing them, identifying them, and checking in about them often helps you really get on it and figure out the things that are and aren't working for you in that regard. And it helps you build that little physical toolkit that the things around you that you keep with you, or that ways that you change your environment or your schedule to help you avoid the worst parts of those things that really really irk you. Remember, overstimulation isn't a weakness, it's information. It's a signal trying to tell you that your nervous system needs attention. So the sooner you can get more aware and more in tune with what gets you out of alignment, you'll be rewarded with better experiences the quicker you can become aware of these things as they're happening. So I'm inviting you, as your assignment, pick one recovery strategy and test it out this week. Maybe it's taking one of those little physical toolkit things and keeping it with you at your desk, in your car, wherever you're going to be. Maybe it's changing something about your environment or your schedule that really might help you avoid these crash out, burnout, overstimulated moments that we all hate. So get out there, keep trying stuff, see what works, see what doesn't. Don't be afraid of failure, because failure gives you information too. Knowing what you don't want is just as important as knowing what you do want, and it certainly leads you down that path eventually. So keep trying, keep experimenting with different things, and make that one change this week just to start. Class dismissed.